make sure that you chock your front wheels so it doesn't roll away. Okay, so we're going to remove the drive shaft. So what we've done here is we've come in and we've lifted on the rear differential with the floor jack. And then we put our jack stands right here where these leaf springs connect on each side, because we want to have the rear wheels just about an inch off the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to break loose these bolts one at a time, and after they're broken loose, in order to access the next bolt, we're going to put the truck in neutral, spin the drive shaft, which will spin the tires, that's why they have to be off the ground, and expose our next bolt. So I sprayed some penetrating oil on these, and it's been soaking for a minute, so we're going to go ahead and remove these bolts. Okay, so to break these loose, you want to put your 17 millimeter on the back side, and then on the front side you'll most likely want to have one of these extensions, and it's also 17 millimeter. So you have a bolt on one side and a nut on the back. So you want your wrench on the back, and ratcheting wrenches help, and then 17 millimeter with an extension to get past the drive shaft, because if you try to put the head of a socket in here, it won't always fit. So by doing that, you can get past it. And these are on pretty tight, so I even took my weight there and gave it a few blows headed this way to finally break it loose. Okay, but you have to hold it still on one side and unbolt it on the other. So go ahead and do that, and once you break it loose, you can move to the next bolt. And then if you can't reach the other bolts or have access, that's where we're going to put it in neutral, spin the wheels to turn the drive shaft and expose the next bolt. Okay, so we broke loose that first bolt, we broke loose this one, and the one on the other side, but we need to get the top one. So now we're going to rotate the drive shaft. Okay, so now we'll put it in neutral, and with the rear wheels in the air, I don't know if that made the truck think it was being towed or something, but it wasn't wanting me to put it in neutral that way, so we're going to go ahead and just put a screwdriver into this little tab. And so you can lift that little piece out, and then when you push down with the screwdriver, it will allow you to then put it in neutral. So pushing that switch down, it allows it to go right into neutral. Okay, and make sure that your emergency brake is down. Okay, now you should be able just to grab onto the drive shaft itself and twist it to expose that last bolt that we need to get to. And now we'll just pull the e-brake and put it back in park so that we can break it loose. Okay, with the next bolt exposed, we pulled the e-brake back up. You can put it in park as well if you'd like. And now we can get that last bolt off. Okay, so all 4 bolts are broken loose, and before we go any farther, I put a scratch mark on both this yoke right here and on the flange. And I just marred it real quick with a screwdriver so we know to put it back together the same way. Because we do want to put the drive shaft back on in the same relationship that it came off. So now we can just take off the rest of these bolts. They're all broken loose, so we'll just remove the bolts and pull the drive shaft off. Okay, so all 4 of our bolts are removed. Now you should be able to grab the drive shaft and just pull it towards you a little bit, and it will come off of this lip right there. And so now the drive shaft is free on this back end. So now on the front end of the drive shaft, we're just going to pull the whole drive shaft towards the back of the truck until it comes out of the transfer case there. And when that happens, we will likely lose some transmission fluid, so you want to have a catch pan under it. Okay, so we're just going to pull the drive shaft backwards here. You can see it coming out there. And you want to just make sure you have your catch pan to get any fluid that might come out. So now we just set our drive shaft aside. Okay, and I just put the bolts back in the flange where we got them out of, and that just helps organize things. If you can put a bolt back where it came from, that helps. Okay, so here we are under the truck on the driver's side, and we're going to find our front differential for the 4-wheel drive and follow its drive shaft back to the transfer case. And on here we have our 14mm wrench. There's 4 of these bolts on here, just like the rear drive shaft. And so we have our liquid wrench on there already. And so we're going to take this and we're going to pull it so it's going counterclockwise. And we will likely use our weight again to pound it to really break it loose. Okay, so we lifted the front of the truck here and put some jack stands under the control arms just to keep it safe. So now our wheels are off the ground and we can grab our drive shaft here and twist it and expose that next series of bolts here that we need to get off. And so, as you can see, the wheels were spinning when we were doing that. Okay, so now that this one's here, you can have somebody sit in the truck and hold the brake so you can break that one loose. Otherwise, you'll have to put it back on the ground again so that the wheels don't spin when you go to break it loose. Okay, so with all these broken loose now, you can just spin them off. Just hold the back end there, spin each of these off, and we'll be able to disconnect that drive shaft that goes to the front differential. Okay, and then I took a screwdriver and just scratched the relationship of the flange to the yoke there, just so that we know how to put it back on, exactly how it came off. Okay, so with all those bolts out, you should be able to just pull that drive shaft away from the transfer case. So now we're disconnected. Okay, so here we are at the transfer case here at the rear, and we're just going to go around and follow this harness and make sure that it's free from the transfer case. There's like a little zip tie deal here, and we're just going to follow it and basically unplug it everywhere that there's a connection. Okay, so here's our plug for the transfer case, and I pushed in right here with a screwdriver. In fact, it had a nice little place for you to put the screwdriver up in here and help push that button. But you just push that button and slide that one out. Okay, then right under it, here's another one. So we're just pushing that tab and sliding that one off. And then we just want to pull it out. It has one of those Christmas tree type pins here. So we'll push on the other side of this here, or cut that zip tie just to get that off. Okay, so we just opened up the zip tie here and decided to take it out that way. There is a bracket here that you can undo and take off. Okay, so that harness goes up over the top and down here. So we'll pull it away from up here on this zip tie. We'll pull it away from here on this one too. And then we're just going to undo both of these so they just pinch and pop off. And same thing. Now that one's off. Okay, and like I said, we'll just pop these out of their little zip tie holders. Okay, so I just pulled that harness out from there and pulled that other harness out from there too. Just pried on it with some needle nose pliers and just got that clip right here just popped out. So just make sure you don't hurt any wiring. Here, there's another bracket here. We're just going to pull this one out. Okay, so just push that one through. That looks like there was one more here that we missed, so I'll push that one through. Next, we're going to disconnect the transfer case from the transmission. So that's going to be all these 14mm bolts. There's some on the back side here and then the front side here. But we're just going to go all the way around, disconnecting these 14mm bolts and then separate it from the transmission. Okay, so we're taking a rubber mallet and putting it against the transfer case and then using a weight to hit it, and that will help separate the transmission. You'll see it start to come apart. And you want to do this evenly because you have the shaft going through the middle, so we'll come over here and try to do the same thing, maybe down here or right here. A few gentle taps. So as it starts to separate, we've twisted it here onto its side so we can hit it here. So we've just put our rubber mallet there and then just hit it with that weight again. So Just hit it there with the rubber mallet. In between is the insulator, and as you can see, it's separating and it's put together on these dowel pins. So once it comes off of those, it'll separate straight away. Okay, so there it is separated now. And just remember, it's these dowel pins here that are guiding it and kind of holding it on at the last part.